All right. I wanted to ask you, can you hear me like this so I can have both hands free if I don't use that microphone? Is it okay? Yeah. All right. You can move closer if you like, a bit. All right. Okay, so good morning, everyone. My today's lecture will be about Drupal Ajax form API and like modal forms, dialogs, and such stuff. So let's see. I will tell you what is a modal dialog. Why should we put forms in such modal dialogs? I will outline the use cases from Drupal Core and contributed modules. I will talk a bit about the APIs. I will show you some example implementations, which will have like ranging difficulty levels from like easy through medium, hard, and like very hard. While we're at it, I would like to know what's your experience level with Drupal. Like, so who has more than 5 years of experience? Can you raise a hand? Okay, so I assume others have less than 5 years. Or prefer not to tell. That's good. Okay, so I can go through like more complex examples. I will also tell you about the limitations of the current APIs and different implementations. I will show you my own work that extends the Drupal Core Ajax APIs. So we can do more things with modal forms. With an example on my country project, Drupal LMS. And we'll have some question and answer session. Okay, so let's start with just a dialog. It's a window that shows on top of the current content, and you can put basically anything in the window. It can be a form, it can be a node, it can be some other content. Doesn't really matter. And it allows to extend the user interface without reloading the page. Now, a modal dialog is a dialog that prevents any interaction with the underlying page. I don't know if you tried a couple of times. Sometimes when a modal dialog pops up on some page, I am a bit annoyed and I hide it with CSS. Some of you probably did. Okay. Yeah, so that's a modal dialog. And now, why should we put forms in such dialogs? So we can improve user experience. We can like add an additional data layer to the form that is behind the modal dialog, like reference an entity to an entity we're editing or something like this. So it's another like level of abstraction. And yeah, let's go through the use cases. So we have views admin user interface in core. We have the blog placement page, the layout builder, media library, entity view form modes, image styles. Actually, there are no modal dialogs there, but it's a good place to put them. So I placed it on the list. And we've contributed projects that have also quite complex or like very complex user interfaces. So we have paragraphs. So when you like add a paragraph to an entity, you have a modal dialog where you can edit the paragraph. We have entity reference module, which also has modals. Also, I recently worked with web forms, and there's also quite a lot of modals there. Now, that's where the easy part begins. So the API. So to actually render some content in a modal window, in a dialog, all we need to do is to display a link with some additional attributes. So we need actually one class, use Ajax, and an URL, which is like normal in case of buttons. So basically it's just a class, and in case of links, we need to attach the core Drupal dialog Ajax library, because otherwise it's not going to work. Now we have the easy example, which somehow disappeared. Basically, I recorded all the examples just in case, but I will show the examples live now. So that's the easy example. We have a link, and it loads the last node. And the last node we can see in content. Yeah, it's this one. I'm a dialog. All right. And now the code. So we have a controller in the routing file. And in the controller, we have the easy callback for the page, which gets the last node ID, builds URL, and builds a link that just triggers the model with the class. What's funny here is that I didn't have to attach the library, and it still works. And it's like this in all the examples. So yeah, you can note that attaching the library is not a requirement anymore. Somehow, previously we had to attach the library, but now Core just detects that there is an Ajax element. If we use the class, then probably we'd have to attach a library. But if we use an Ajax element, it's like this in all my examples, we don't have to attach anything. Core just knows by this. Okay. Now, more of the API. If we want to include a form in a modal dialog, then we have to add the form to the routing file, and we need to create the form class. That's still quite simple. Here are some required methods of the form class. That's all in the interface. And in the form, we should implement an Ajax callback. Okay, I see that's for some other example. That's actually a different way of opening a modal dialog if we want to do it from a controller or from a form. So we have some commands that open modal dialogs. We can use it with an URL and with a renderable array. So whether from a controller or from a form Ajax callback, we need to return an Ajax response and add a command to open a modal dialog. Okay. Now, all the Ajax stuff is in the Drupal Core Ajax namespace. So it's like a folder in like Drupal Core lib src and like in Ajax. So the most important thing there is the Ajax response class. It basically builds all the Ajax responses by allowing to add different commands there. We have quite a lot of commands, including replace, append, invoke. We have an Ajax form helper trait, which, well, it does one thing. It allows to, if the form fails validation, this trait does the logic for us and replaces the form with highlighted errors. It's not perfect, but I will show you a bit later. It needs a small fix actually on the form that uses it. Now, about the dialogs, we have open dialog command, open modal dialog command, open modal dialog with URL, and open off canvas dialog command. I put the question marks here because I noticed the only thing that differs the off canvas dialog command from the dialog command is one HTML class. So it's and it looks the same, at least on the Claro theme. So yeah, probably something with rendering. Now a bit more about the API. From the forms perspective. So the most important part is the form Ajax response builder. So if core detects this is an Ajax call from a form, then that class, the response builder, comes into play and builds a response for us. It creates specific commands and the callback and then the response is an Ajax response. The form gets rebuilt, and so on. Like everything works. Now, here's a typo. Not nice. Okay, so the form builder also includes quite a lot of Ajax-specific logic, which is like deep in the core, and I will not talk about it. And we have, for every element that can trigger form submission, we have an Ajax property, which has some additional properties like callback, disable refocus, event, wrapper, progress, URL, effect, speed. Yeah, I will tell you a bit more about them while talking about the examples. Now, the easy example that we already have covered. Let's go for the medium example. Okay, so we have a page that is built with a controller. It's not a form, but now we can open a model form. It's basically quite similar to the previous example. And when submitting the form, we replaced some of the content on the page. Okay, I will show you the limitations. It looks like I have 28 minutes until the end of the presentation. Sorry for the small font. Now, for the medium example. So we have a page callback and a form. Now, for the page callback, as I told you, quite similar to the previous example, except we have two containers here, like and a link. Link is about the same as in the easy example. And now for the form. Okay, so what's interesting here is in the build form method. Okay, if we use a wrapper for the callback, that means that the renderable array that is returned by the callback, like this one, is rendered automatically, and the Ajax response builder I told you about previously, creates an Ajax response basing on other parameters here. So we can define how the content is replaced. Okay, and the content is always replaced here. There is no other command possible. So it's always a replace command, but we can control progress bar. It can be a bar and it can be a throw bar. We can control the effect. It's fade at the moment, and we can control the speed of the transition. What's the limitation here? We cannot run any other commands. So, for example, we cannot close the model window. We have just one replace command. So it's like not very difficult because we don't have to play with commands, just this and callback function, but it's quite limited. Okay, let's see what's next. The hard example. Okay. Let's go with the hard example. Okay, now we have a form on the page. We can set some value, and we have an open modal button. Now, when we click submit without entering any values, the entire form is replaced with the newly rendered form that highlights the validation errors. Now, when we select a command to execute, that's content replacement actually, and submit, we can see some content replaced and the model dialog window closed. We have some other commands like removing the content, setting input of the parent form, so we have some value here instead of what I entered previously. And now we have one more command that adds one more input to the parent form. And this is where we have another limitation. The parent form didn't get rebuilt, so that added element is actually not in the parent form. It's only in the HTML, but not in the cached form in Drupal database. So we'll see what happens when we submit the form. Okay, so the only input if in the form state values is our first value from the element that was previously there. We have the second value, but only in the user input of the form. So user input is quite limited because it is not validated in any way. So if we want such a form to be secure, we need to sanitize that value by ourselves. Drupal will not do it for us. Also, if we will need to do some other logic with the form, and it's going to be rebuilt again, that field is not going to be in the form. All right. Now, let's see the code. So the hard example routing consists of two forms. One is the underlying page form, and the second is the model form. And now for the forms, what's interesting here, we have an Ajax response and an open modal dialog with URL in the use statements. We have two buttons, one that submits the form and one that triggers the Ajax callback and opens the model form. We have the Ajax callback, which opens the model form. It just adds that single command that opens the model dialog with URL. And URL is the URL from the routing file of the model form. And we have the submit form method that just displays the values. And now for the model form. As you can see, we have quite a lot in the use statements from the Ajax namespace, from the core. So what it does, we have a command selector, we have a submit button, we have the Ajax form helper trait included, and what it does, it handles error messages on the form. So it replaces the form if the form fails validation, as I showed in the example. It has one limitation, because normally when we replace the form ID changes. When we rebuild, sorry. So we cannot replace the form using the form ID. And the Ajax form helper trait does exactly that. It uses data Drupal selector, which is built basing on the form ID. So we have to set the form ID to a constant value so that core form API doesn't interfere and we can have the form replaced actually, because otherwise it would be a different ID and that the replace command wouldn't work. So the trait is nice, but you have to know of this little workaround, which is a bit annoying and costed me like 1 hour of debugging when preparing the presentation. Now, the successful Ajax submit handler, it just executes the commands. So we have the replace command, the remove command, the invoke command. The invoke command changes the value because you can invoke an jQuery method with this command. And we have the append command, which adds the element. All right, that's it for the hard example. So, what are the limitations? So, as I told you, the parent form doesn't get rebuilt. It only gets rebuilt on its own route and only if the user input contains the proper form ID. So when we submit the model form, the form ID is different, so we have no way of actually rebuilding the parent form. That's why the edit element was not there, and like it's not very straightforward to, yeah. Now, yeah, if we wanted to build a form to the model within the parent form, so every data is in place, then we have another limitations, because different forms have different form builders. So for example, views have quite complex form builder, and actually to build the views form, you have to render the entire view. So it's like, it's not possible to build only the form, and one would have to copy a lot of logic from the views builder to actually build the views form. Now, again, with entity forms, it's also a similar case. It's like a bit less complex. So entity forms need a bundle parameter. And they have also their own builder. So it's not just that you can like get the form entity from the class that builds the form. You need to use the form builder so it actually works. And it adds some additional handlers like the process element. Okay. Now we get to the impossible example. Good. Yeah, this is impossible with the Drupal Core API. So we have a text field, at least not every type. We open a model, add some input. And now we have two inputs in the form. And when we submit values from the form state, also have the second input value. So it means that the parent form actually somehow got rebuilt. Now, yeah, let's see how. So routing file, we only have the parent form. We don't have the model form somehow, so we don't need an URL for it. Wondering why? Let's see the impossible form. Okay, the form builder has the input. It has some container, which is probably not needed in this example because it's empty. We have some rebuild method that uses model form data that we don't know yet where is it coming from. Okay, it's coming from the model format. It's interesting how. And now the Ajax callback looks different. So we have the URL, which points to a model subform endpoint of my own API that is currently in the Drupal LMS module. And we are adding some query parameters to the URL. Plugin ID, dialog operation, which is open, and parent, which is this form data. So we have the same plugin ID for the form, and we have a parent form parameter, so we know that this request is coming from the parent form. And we have a normal Ajax callback, which is okay, which also returns an Ajax response and opens a model dialog. And we have an Ajax update function. Okay, I think this one actually can be deleted. Yeah, and we have an Ajax update function, which returns also some strange thing, because instead of an Ajax response, it returns an array of Ajax commands. That's because core Ajax responses don't support merging yet. So we cannot merge two Ajax responses into a single one by adding commands. It's impossible. There is a Drupal core issue that is in the Reddit reviewed and accepted by the community. Soon, hopefully, it's going to launch. Okay, yes, the form and the model form. Yeah. Well, it just builds the form, and the submit button also has some of those strange parameters. Okay, now I don't know how are you following me currently, but I will show you maybe just a bit. So we have a model subform plugin that is used by the API that is in the Drupal LMS module. And it has a few methods. It gets the form object, which is using form builders, usually. So, yeah, now we're just using the class resolver to get the instance of the form class. which is in one case is the parent form, and in second case is the model form. And it also has the access method, so the endpoint that handles the form submission knows if the current user can access the form. Because with normal form submissions, it's just the page where the form is, so the user has access to the page or not. So that's simple. And in this case, all the forms get submitted, that use the plugin get submitted to a single endpoint. So we need that additional access method. And we have the model dialog ID, because there can be many model dialogs. All right, I think that's enough for this example, because we don't have much time, as I see. If someone will be interested, there are references. Now, I will show you how this works in the real-life example. So we have Drupal LMS installed on this page. And learning management systems have courses. So let's create a new course for like learning purposes. Okay, and now we have those two buttons here that allow us to create lessons and reference lessons. Okay, let's create a lesson. So we had one model window that was replaced by a second model window, and we have an underlying form. Now let's create a lesson. And now what's funny, we have activities which are part of every lesson. Let's create an activity. So, see what's happening now. We have one model form that is on top of a second model form that is on top of the parent page. So currently we have two levels of abstractions. When we're creating an entity that is a part of an entity that is a part of an entity on the parent form. Okay, so let's see an activity. Let's create an activity. So we selected type. So that was like a two-step form. First, we selected a type. And in the second step, we are actually creating entity from an entity form. What's funny, we have Ajax callbacks on those model forms. So we're adding another question. Okay, questions. Yeah. Okay, and the activity is included in the lesson form. I think we have all. Lesson is here. That's a view, and a views form is also a plugin for the Modal dialog form API. So we're referencing some other lesson. So as you can see, the parent form got rebuilt. And when we create the course, it's here. When we edit it, all the data is in place. We can now take the course and everything is here. Like we have lessons, one referenced, and one created and one just referenced, and like we can continue the course. All right. So with yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So what's the field type behind this references? Can it be used with entity reference division? Like the main use case will be to use the paragraph with this modal form instead of
Okay, you had 3 entity forms there actually. One is a group form from the groups module. One is a lesson form, which is a custom entity from Drupal LMS, and one is an activity, which is also a custom entity. Those entities can have any fields. So you can put paragraphs there, and the paragraphs will just...
Okay, so it will work like that with
Yeah, it's a general API. Well, also there are file uploads in one activity type, so it's just... okay, the trick there is like when we submit a parent form, the input gets cached. It gets saved to the, I think to the temp store, but I don't remember exactly, or some other type of temporary storage.
That's actually the way how inline entity form works. It works exactly the same.
Yeah. So when you so when you submit a model form, the parent form also gets rebuilt with the cached input from the previous request. That's the, or not the previous, but one of the previous requests is if it's like nested quite a lot. So yeah, the storage is actually the same as the forms, as the form API cache. I think it's key value storage. Yeah, it's expirable key value storage for 2 hours. Yeah. So that we have, and like, yeah. Source code and references for today's lecture. So I created a repository with the presented examples on GitHub. So yeah, you can check it out anytime. We have the Ajax examples module, which is like linked on Drupal.org somewhere, is a part of the examples module. We have some docs on Drupal.org about Ajax dialog boxes and Ajax form API. And the issue, I created an issue on Drupal Core to actually integrate the API to Core, which would be quite beneficial because as I told you at the beginning, there's quite a lot of modules in Core and Contrib that have their own solutions, and like they all could use a single API, centralized. That would be much better instead of like writing a solution for every case. All right, and now would be some time for questions and answers, if there are any more.
So another question. Are there some Contrib modules that I can install and just use to existing paragraph field, for example?
Sorry again,
I mean, is there, you show the examples, it's using some class from LMS project,
yeah.
but are there some separate small module that I can install and, for example, use the field widget to use this Modal dialogs? And do you have any plans to create one?
No, it's only used by Drupal LMS currently, and that's where the API is, and it's used by the widget, which is used in 2 entity types there. So to use it, actually, you need to like create a field widget or something like. It's an API, and it's not separated anywhere yet. It would be good to extract it and like document and so on, but currently it's a part of a single module.
With the Drupal Core API, it's also very difficult to build the multi-step form. So anything you thought of it, how we can make it better?
Yeah, as I said, I created this issue on Drupal Core. I added some instructions about the part of APIs, in which files they can be found and so on, and how the API can be further improved and documented. So if someone will follow up with that issue, then yeah, it will be possible. It can be improved a lot. Well, it takes quite some time to get the hang of it and like actually make it work. So, all right, thank you very much.